Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission here is, well, it's pretty simple. We take a stack of sources, pull out the absolute highest value insights, and give you that cognitive shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
And today we're doing something a little meta.
We're not looking at policy or history today. We're actually analyzing the mechanism of learning itself.
Yeah, the source material we have is a framework for knowledge acquisition. It's titled Guided Reading, Stories, Articles, and Analysis.
And the description is so simple, it's almost deceptive. It just says, reading practice, short stories, articles with explanations.
Right.
So our goal for this deep dive is to unpack that specific three-part structure, the stories, the articles, and then those expert explanations.
And really get into why this particular combination is such a potent formula.
Exactly. Why does it help you get a thorough understanding so quickly, without that classic information overload?
This is for anyone who needs depth, but let's be honest, doesn't have unlimited time.
Okay, let's unpack this. So we start with the foundation. The most active instruction in that whole description, reading practice.
And that, I think, is the most profound part. It doesn't say reading consumption.
No, it's practice.
And that word choice is everything. It signals a shift from, passive consumption, the kind of reading we all do scrolling online, to active engagement.
So why is that word practice so critical here? Why is active engagement so much better for retention?
Well, because thorough knowledge is all about what you do with the information you take in. It's not just about how much of it you see.
I think most people get that on some level. You read a textbook once and it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
But they don't always know why.
Right. And when you call something practice, it implies you're doing something with it. Repetition, testing yourself, retrieval.
Okay, talk about that a bit. Retrieval. Actively trying to pull the information out of your own head.
Yeah.
Why is that the step you just can't skip?
It connects right back to some fundamental cognitive science. Researchers call it the testing effect or retrieval practice. When you just read an article, that information is kind of sitting in your short-term memory. It's like an open tab on your browser.
It's there, but it's fragile.
Exactly. But the moment you are forced to retrieve it, to practice summarizing the key points without looking, for example, that effort strengthens the neural pathway. Think of it like a path in a forest. Just reading is like flying over it in a helicopter. You see the path, but you don't really know it.
You haven't built it yourself.
You haven't built it. Practice is physically walking that path, and the harder you have to work to find your way, the more you exert that retrieval effort, the deeper that path gets worn.
So the next time, it's easier to find.
Much easier. For anyone listening who values thoroughness, practice is what makes knowledge stick. It ensures you can actually apply it later, not just recognize it on a page.
It's the antidote to that feeling where you read an entire book, you close it, and you realize you can only recall maybe 3 vague concepts.
We've all been there.
So the reading practice label is really a form of baked-in accountability. It's a commitment to retention, not just familiarity.
Precisely. And this is so important for fighting information overload. If you're practicing, you are immediately filtering, you're synthesizing what's coming in.
You're not just letting the fire hose of data hit you.
Right. You're constantly asking yourself, what here is essential, and how can I use this?
Okay, so that sets a really strong foundation. But now we get to the part of the structure that, to me, is a little clever, maybe even counterintuitive.
The stories.
Yeah, mid-short stories.
Yeah.
If the goal is to be deeply informed on something complex, say global supply chains, why bring in narrative? Why not just stick to the facts?
That is a fascinating choice, and it shows, I think, a really deep understanding of how human memory works.
How so?
Look, if you give me 50 pages of raw statistics and policy jargon, my eyes are going to glaze over. I will struggle to keep the data points straight. But if you tell me a story about one specific manufacturer who went bankrupt because of those statistics, I will remember that story.
And the facts will stick to the story.
They attach themselves to that emotional and contextual anchor. The story isn't just entertainment, it's a cognitive filing system.
It's an index.
Exactly. Our brains are optimized for narrative. It's our oldest way of passing along complex information. Stories give you the context, the why. They take abstract ideas and make them tangible.
Okay, let's use a quick example. Let's say the topic is, the global impact of microplastics. The article section is full of dense data, right? Polymer breakdown rates, ocean concentrations.
Okay, yeah.
How would a short story help with that?
Well, the story would bridge that gap between the sterile lab report and real life. Maybe the story's about a deep-sea fisherman whose catch is always contaminated.
Or a scientist who's struggling to get anyone to pay attention to her findings.
Perfect. So you read that story first. Then when you get to the article and you see a number like 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic are in the ocean.
It's not just a big abstract number anymore.
No, now it represents that fisherman's struggle or the urgency the scientist feels. It provides the emotional stake.
It transforms microplastics in the ocean from just a headline into a really immediate, palpable problem.
And that's the genius of using short stories. It respects your time, but still delivers those aha moments that only a good narrative can.
So that raises a question then. The story gives us the hook, the context. But what about the hard facts, the multiple viewpoints you need to be an actual expert?
And that is exactly where the article comes in, right after that hook has been set.
Right, now we're at the core knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
the articles. This is where the factual grounding happens.
This is the substance.
For the listener who really wants depth, this is where you get the density of information you need, the studies, the data, the history.
And you have to have that factual core. A story without facts is just a fable.
But like we said, a stack of dense articles by themselves can be paralyzing. Which brings us to the next layer.
And this is maybe the most critical layer in the whole structure, the part that really separates this from just, reading on your own.
The explanations.
The explanations.
Okay, this is the big value add, right? For a person who's pressed for time, an expert explanation alongside the article feels like the ultimate shortcut. It promises synthesis, clarity.
It does.
But I want to challenge that a little bit. Doesn't relying on a built-in explanation risk making you lazy? Spoon-feeding you the answer and stopping you from doing your own critical thinking?
That's a crucial question. And I think it comes down to the difference between a simple summary and a true expert explanation.
Okay, what's the difference?
If the explanation just repeated what was in the article said X, Y, and Z, then yes, it would be a crutch. But that's not what good synthesis is.
So what is it?
The explanations are meant to act as a guide for your critical thinking, not a replacement for it. They're designed to triage the info, connect the dots, and maybe point out methodological issues a normal reader might miss.
Okay, let's stick with our microplastics example. Give me a concrete case of what a good explanation does.
Perfect. Imagine the article presents two studies on microplastic cleanup. Study A is really optimistic, says it can eliminate 70% of certain polymers.
And study B is much more pessimistic.
Right, it says scalability is a huge problem. Now, a simple summary would just list those two conflicting viewpoints,
Okay.
but an expert explanation connects the dots. It would highlight something like, notice that study A was done in a controlled lab with one type of polymer. Study B, on the other hand, was analyzing the problem in a turbulent real-world estuary.
Ah, so it's the methodology.
Exactly. It clarifies why their findings are so different. It answers the why behind the disagreement. It's not just telling you what the article said.
It's telling me how to evaluate what it said. It reveals the context I need and shows the relationship between the facts.
Precisely. If we pull back to the big picture, the explanations part is the built-in critical thinking coach. It ensures you're truly well-informed, not just factually informed.
You're getting the analysis and the footnotes all at once.
And that drastically cuts down the time you'd normally spend doing all that extra research and synthesis after you're done reading.
For the time-pressed learner, that is just immense value. It's a shortcut to context. You walk away with a functional understanding of the topic's real complexities.
Including where the experts themselves still disagree.
So when we put all three of these components back together, what does it all mean? It seems this isn't just a collection of readings. It's a deliberately designed and optimized learning stack.
That is the core insight. The structure itself is the system. It minimizes what you forget and maximizes what you retain.
So let's break down that stack one more time.
Okay. The short story gives you the emotional hook, that cognitive anchor. It makes the abstract stuff relatable.
Then the article provides the robust factual core, the depth, the multiple viewpoints.
And finally, the explanation provides the clarity, the analysis, the critical thinking guide that connects all the facts and saves you hours of work.
It's an incredibly efficient loop. You start with a compelling narrative, you absorb the hard facts, and then you immediately process the expert context and the critical implications.
And that combination minimizes the risk of feeling overwhelmed because you are guided through the hardest part of learning.
Which is making sense of all the data.
Making sense of it all. And this framework caters perfectly to the needs of a demanding listener. You get speed from the guided approach, depth from the articles, and clarity from the analysis.
It takes the guesswork out of mastering a new, complex field.
So we'd really encourage you to think about this guided approach for any topic you need to get up to speed on quickly. Look for this kind of structure, or even try to create it for yourself.
So this deep dive into the source structure, it's really shown us that being well-informed isn't just about reading more, it's about reading smarter.
It's about blending that narrative hook, the factual core, and the expert synthesis into a single optimized unit of practice.
Yeah.
And here's a final, maybe provocative thought for you to take with you. If this balance of story, fact, and analysis is what's required for efficient knowledge acquisition,
How can you apply it yourself?
exactly, how can you apply this tripartite structure to organize your own notes the next time you do a deep dive? When you finish a dense report for work, what would your own short story analogy be? And what's the critical explanation point you need to write down so you don't just know the facts, but you truly understand their context and their real implications?